If you are between 75 and 85 and still doing these 6 things, your body is beating biology in ways that most doctors rarely get to witness. Not surviving, not managing, not simply making it through each day with a list of medications and a calendar full of medical appointments, actually beating the biological expectations that modern medicine has built around what a human body is supposed to look like, feel like, and function like in the 8th and 9th decades of life. And here is the thing that makes this genuinely extraordinary rather than just inspiring. The people who are doing these 6 things at 75, at 80, at 85 did not get there by accident. They did not win a genetic lottery or stumble into exceptional health through good fortune. They made choices, specific, consistent daily choices that compounded over years and decades into a biological reality that looks to everyone around them like luck, but is actually something far more intentional and far more available than luck has ever been. What those choices are and what they are doing at the cellular level is what you are about to discover. And if you are nowhere near 75 yet, pay even closer attention, because what keeps a body extraordinary at 80 starts with what you decide to do today. The expectations most people carry into the later decades of life are heavy with assumptions that nobody ever directly chose, but that everybody somehow absorbed. That the 70s and 80s mean decline, that independence gradually surrenders to dependence. That the world gets smaller and the body gets less and the mind gets slower, and all of this is simply the price of having lived long enough. Those assumptions are not invented from nothing. They are drawn from real observation of real people in the real world. But what the science of longevity has been quietly and persistently revealing over the last 2 decades is that those observations are describing the average, not the ceiling. And the ceiling is so much higher than the average that the distance between them represents not just different health outcomes, but fundamentally different human experiences of what it means to be alive in the final chapters of a long life. The people still doing these 6 things between 75 and 85 are living at the ceiling. And the architecture of that ceiling is something science can now describe with enough precision that it should change everything about how the rest of us approach the years between here and there. Before we go through all 6 things, I need you to hold on to something, because the 6th one is the one that will stay with you the longest after this video ends. It is the one that most people in this age range have either quietly abandoned or never recognized as the biological force it actually is. It is not about food. It is not about exercise. It is not about sleep or supplements or any of the conventional pillars of health advice that you have heard discussed in every wellness conversation you have ever been part of. It is something more fundamental than all of those things, something that operates at the level of cellular biology in a way that is only now being fully mapped by longevity researchers, and something that the most extraordinary people between 75 and 85 share with a consistency that is impossible to attribute to coincidence. We will get there, but the foundation has to come first. The first thing that extraordinary people between 75 and 85 are still doing is walking every single day without treating it as optional, not power walking, not structured cardiovascular training with metrics and targets, simply walking consistently, daily, as an unquestioned part of how they exist in the world, rather than as an exercise they schedule when motivation allows. The research on walking in the late decades of life is so extensive and so consistent across so many different study populations that its findings have crossed from promising to definitive. People who walk regularly into their late 70s and 80s have measurably lower inflammatory markers in their blood, better insulin sensitivity, higher bone density, more robust cardiovascular efficiency, stronger immune function, and significantly better cognitive performance than those who have stopped. Walking stimulates brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein that promotes neural growth and maintenance. It keeps the vascular system responsive. It maintains the muscle mass that declines so rapidly with inactivity after 70, and that once lost becomes extraordinarily difficult to recover. The people still walking at 80 are not walking because they are healthy. The biology is clear on the direction of that relationship. They are healthy because they never once decided that walking was something they had graduated from. The second thing is eating with genuine intention at an age when most people have either stopped believing that food choices matter anymore or have been encouraged by well-meaning people around them to simply enjoy whatever brings comfort. Eating with intention at 75 to 85 does not mean restriction or deprivation or following a complicated protocol. It means continuing to make conscious decisions about what goes into the body, with the understanding that the body at 80 is not less responsive to nutrition than the body at 40. In many ways, it is more responsive because its reserves are smaller and its repair systems are working with less redundancy. The people who are still eating abundant vegetables, quality proteins, whole grains, and the fruits and legumes that feed the gut microbiome with the specific fibers it needs to maintain immune regulation and anti-inflammatory function are giving their bodies raw materials that no pharmaceutical can substitute. The extraordinary people in this age range have not decided that they have earned the right to stop caring about food. They have understood that caring about food is one of the primary reasons they are still extraordinary. The third thing is maintaining social connection with the deliberate intentionality of someone who understands that loneliness is not just an emotional condition, but a biological one. The research on social isolation and aging is among the most striking in the entire field of longevity science. Chronic loneliness in the 75 to 85 age range produces measurable changes in cortisol levels, inflammatory signaling, immune function, and telomere length that are comparable in their biological impact to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The extraordinary people in this age range are not necessarily the most socially active or the most extroverted, but they have maintained genuine human connection. They have someone to call and someone who calls them. They have relationships that require their presence and their attention and that give back to them the specific biological signal of safety and belonging that the human nervous system requires to maintain its optimal function regardless of the age of the person living inside it. The fourth thing is continuing to learn with the specific quality of engagement that puts the brain in productive discomfort, the state where it is working to understand something it does not yet fully know, reading material that challenges rather than simply entertains. Learning a skill that requires genuine effort and genuine failure before it produces competence. Engaging with ideas that push back against assumptions and require real cognitive work to process. The brain between 75 and 85 is not finished growing. It remains plastic and adaptable and experience responsive throughout the entire human lifespan, including in the decades that most people have been told are about maintenance rather than development. Every genuinely new thing learned at 80 is a real act of neuroprotection, building the cognitive reserve that determines how well the brain maintains function in the face of age-related structural change. The fifth thing is protecting sleep with the seriousness of someone who understands that the hours between sleep and waking are the most biologically productive hours of the entire day. Sleep in the 75 to 85 age range is not passive rest. It is active biological maintenance, during which the glymphatic system clears the metabolic waste products from brain tissue, inflammatory pathways are regulated, hormonal cycles that govern cellular repair run their most intensive programs, and the metabolic processes that determine whether the body moves toward regeneration or accelerated breakdown do their most consequential work. The extraordinary people in this age range have consistent sleep and wake times. They have protected their sleeping environment. They have understood that sacrificing sleep is not a minor inconvenience, but a direct biological cost paid in the currency of accelerated aging and increased disease risk. And now, the sixth thing, the one I told you to hold on to, purpose, a reason to exist that extends beyond personal comfort, something that requires their continued presence, something that connects them to a story larger than their own daily maintenance. The research on purpose and biological aging has produced findings so significant that they have forced a reconsideration of what drives health outcomes in late life at the most fundamental level. People with strong purpose in the 75 to 85 range have lower cardiovascular disease rates, slower cognitive decline, better immune function, lower inflammatory markers, and meaningfully longer life expectancy than those without it. And these differences persist after controlling for every other health variable that researchers have been able to measure. Purpose is not a philosophical addition to a healthy life at 80. It is a biological driver operating through cortisol regulation, inflammatory control, and the maintenance of the neural networks associated with meaning and motivation. The most extraordinary people between 75 and 85 are still needed. By someone, by something, by a community or a cause or a creative practice or a relationship that requires their specific presence and their continued contribution. And that neededness is doing things to their biology that no supplement has ever replicated and no medication has ever matched. 6 things: walking, intentional eating, social connection, continuous learning, protected sleep, and purpose. None of them complicated, all of them consistent. And together they represent the difference between a body that is simply aging and a body that is aging extraordinarily. So here's the question I want every person watching this to answer honestly in the comments below. Whether you are 25 or 55 or 75, which of these 6 things are you currently doing with genuine consistency, and which one are you treating as optional when the biology is telling you it absolutely is not? Tell me below. Because the conversation that starts in the comments might be the one that changes the direction someone else's next decade takes.